man, I wish I had like called it early on. Like, the marketer in me was like, okay, influencers are fun and great, but they're gonna become the next celebrity. They're going to be washed out.
Well, I'm excited to have Taylor Yon here today. She's a social media expert and marketing strategist at the TMI Co. and Roombo. Taylor, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So we've been talking a lot about social media, and obviously there's a lot of conversation around AI, and there's
Yeah.
just so much more stuff to try to understand than ever
Yes.
before, and there's so much change than ever before, happening faster than ever before. So what have you got to share with us today?
Yes, I have 5 tips that have been kind of like a culmination of things that have happened, not just this year, but also, keeping in mind past years and just the rhythm of what social media brings to the table and how it can help and hinder your businesses, but some tips to help you kind of navigate the water so it's not fully uncharted.
You are my captain. I salute you. Let's do
Great.
this.
Let's jump on. All right. So, my first point that I really want to talk about is having an emergency exit plan.
Okay. And
So,
leave social media forever and go into the woods and never be seen
yeah,
again.
that's one way to do it if
Okay.
you so choose, but I would not recommend that.
Okay.
I think we all are still either recovering or still well aware when just a couple months ago, like Microsoft had like a big outage and it was just like Teams, Outlook, things just like plummeted. I mean, I think there was some rejoice, but then there was also some like, oh crap, what are we going to do? Having those like safety nets in place when something like that happens is a huge yes for not only next year, but I think things that have happened that have been like more concrete like that, outages, algorithm changes, those are big red flags saying, listen, like we're not going to be here forever. We're not always going to work the way that you want or that you've planned for. Let's make sure that we have some things in place to make sure that, at least things keep running for your business, but also your client's business too. Things that you might think will work today
Yeah.
might not work tomorrow. You also have to think about in the grander scope of marketing, social media being a very small piece of that puzzle or large, to some organizations because it's free and everyone's on it and you can almost guarantee that your content's going to be seen by someone in some case or form. But I think it's if those were stripped, if those were completely
Yeah.
gone, what would you be doing in addition to social media to help your marketing thrive?
I mean, it's a good reminder, right? That like you don't own any of those channels. You don't own your Instagram. You don't own your LinkedIn. You don't own any of those social media channels.
Right.
So, and it's happened before. Platforms have gone away. They've changed dramatically, and you just literally lost everything.
Let's say we do have a social media outage, which has happened. You know, what would make you sleep at night thinking, I got this, I'm good
Yeah.
because my email is working for me over here. I've got other SEO things in place for website that needs to now pull some heavier weight for the
Right.
time being.
Okay. Love it. Okay. So get your
So
backup
that's
plan in
another,
place.
yes, have an emergency exit plan. So we're on a boat and now we're on a plane.
Okay. Yeah.
And this is a nice segue to a tip that I've been thinking a lot about. And it seems obvious, but change is imminent. It is the only thing that's constant. 3 months ago, I was talking about how social media platforms were looking into like TikToks, exploring 30-minute TikToks or, short form video content on Instagram, now potentially going into like several minutes and 30
Right.
minutes, all of that. I'm specifically speaking about Instagram too here, where the head of Instagram basically was like, yeah, we're no longer exploring that for the platform after doing several tests and audience segments. It's not really what our focus on.
I mean,
So,
they're trying stuff. I mean, I think it's important to know
yeah.
that like these social media platforms, like they're going to try a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff's going to fail. I mean,
And they're
Instagram.
putting people first too. So like if they're, really staying true to what they're saying, like talking to Joe Schmo on the street and taking surveys and doing all of that, they can obviously enhance the app to better fit the people who are using it.
Right.
Instagram specifically will always, I think, go back to the fact that it has been a video or an image sharing platform first, but keeping up with the times had to introduce video. Um, So I think they're always like, we are going to put our followers, our users, and our friends and family first because that's ultimately who's using it. But we have to remember that we're humans using technology for and with other humans. That's often forgotten when we're thinking about the content that we're putting together and how all of that can magically just change.
The other one too is like the technology companies obviously need to have as many users as possible from a business perspective.
Right?
They also are beholden to the brands and where the money comes from.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes can get in the way of how they serve the end user. And that's why there's been a lot of people that have jumped off platforms, especially really young people who are like, I don't like fake commercials, so
Right.
I'm going to go somewhere
Yeah.
else.
And that's a really good point too, because you and I have been talking about TikTok and with B2B. And I think there was a lot of young users on TikTok who were very hesitant to the idea of companies even being allowed to be on the platform because
Right.
they don't want to be served ads.
This is a little off topic, but for TikTok, do you think it makes sense to have companies be on TikTok as a company? Like, one of the ways that companies and brands have sort of been able to circumvent this whole like selling through the social media app is by through influencer marketing, right? Like,
Yeah.
everybody trusts this person, so I'll pay this person to talk about my product. And it isn't really a traditional commercial anymore. It's sort of a modern day commercial for the
Right.
product through a person that they're listening to. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on having companies on TikTok?
It's kind of a yes and no answer because if you're, selling, let's say, some construction material or fencing, you, you either don't want to attempt to do that because 18 to 20-year-olds are not buying construction materials or fencing. You either don't do it because it is a lot of commitment to do it right,
Yeah,
or you are going to find a creative way to showcase your service and your product in a way that a younger demographic will
right.
engage with that. One of the examples that you and I've even like shared with you before is like there is a very fun and successful exterminating service that takes users on TikTok under the houses to, see what they're going to find. Like, am I going to go under a house to like go? No, I'm not.
Gross. Yeah,
Am I
not gonna do
going
it.
to potentially watch
Yeah,
an exterminator go find something under 100-year-old house? Yeah, that could be kind of entertaining. So I think you have to make that determination of the level of commitment you're going to put up front in the content you're going to create that's going to resonate with the majority of the demographic audience that is
yeah.
on those channels.
And I think,
LinkedIn.
well, on that note too, if you're not willing to shift how your voice to be entertaining, I mean, entertainment, it has to be part of it. So that doesn't mean like tell a joke every single time. It could mean a lot of different things. It could be super authentic
Yeah.
storytelling. It could be whatever, but it can't be a commercial. You can't be hawking products.
Let's say you do have an employee who is just naturally funny or naturally, a great fit on camera. Try it out.
I mean, that's one of the things we're doing a lot of right now at Fun Guy is positioning the people as like the actual brand, the personified version of it
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, but positioning their own profiles, not the company's profile. It's
Right.
like the content's going through them, and the company's investing in that because they're seeing that it works to have their experts, whether it's their sales team or whether it's their technical expert or whether it's a funny person that just has a great
Right.
personality, to position them and invest in them.
Yeah, that's what's working. And it's really successful because it doesn't take a ton of work. I mean, they're already educated at the company that they're working at. And if
Right.
they're willing to talk great things because they love what they do, it's kind of a slam dunk.
We should do a full episode on that.
We should.
Um,
That's next. Stay
okay,
tuned.
well, stay tuned. What's the next insight here, Taylor?
All right.
What do we need
Um,
to share with the audience?
The other thing is thinking about this human nature is checking on your teams and your insights. Social media managers under the spectrum of marketing tend to get the brunt of everything when it comes to like, am I going viral? Do we have enough budget? Make this happen, publish it now. do we have the right influencers? All those things start to bubble and fester a little when before you hit the end of the year. So
Yeah.
if we're talking about our marketing and our social media teams, they experience a lot of burnout, especially now, because so much changes, right? We just talked about all of those things that can shift and change,
Right.
and that really falls into their lap. I rely heavily on doing a lot of research, especially with scheduling software like Hootsuite and Sprout Social, all of that. They have really great content on just the state of social media
Mm,
marketing.
yeah.
And it is sad to report that there are a ton of, saddening statistics about burnout and social media managers just not feeling like they can break through. A good 60% say that they have too many responsibilities. They definitely work more than 40 hours a week. Let's say social media crashes. Guess who's working probably to the wee hours of the water, just trying to figure out how to get this back online. So I think it's really just checking in on your team and being appreciative of the work that is.
Right.
I think I get that a lot too. It's just like, well, it's just social media. We're just throwing up some posts. Like, well, there's a lot more behind that.
Yeah. I've heard that.
And I'm sure a
I've
lot
heard
of
that
people in
too.
marketing feel that way too. So shout out to my peeps. It's
Yeah.
hard
Shout out
work.
to the peeps. Okay.
Yeah.
It's time for a check-in, people. What's next
All
after
right.
we
So
check in on
number
team?
4 on here is something that I think is really important to talk about as we are talking about monetization and, what you get back from all that you put in for social media. And this idea that you, like I said, you're not going to go viral. I would just say like 90% of people are not going to go viral. And the reason you do go viral is sometimes not really something we control. But looking at the numbers and engagement and data that does actually meet some goals and show growth and important factors that your ecosystem of marketing is working. And so thinking about your leads as the new ROI,
Okay.
warm leads, connections, engagement points, conversations, because so much what I think ROI, like return on investment, is investment equals dollars when that isn't usually the case. It could be investment in the people that you have in place, the content that you're creating, all of those things. What is the investment that you're putting in, and what's the return in a very matter of fact way, acknowledging that a warm lead is just as important or just as significant as a dollar.
Right. You got to have the lead before you get the dollar anyways, right?
Right. It's a natural part of that customer journey.
And I think it goes back to like defining what the end state or success looks like in the first place before you
Right.
just start doing social media stuff. Like, is your goal to generate a certain amount of leads? Is your goal
Right.
to build brand awareness? That's not necessarily going to connect back to a specific dollar amount.
Right.
Um, we know that's a longer term play. And so, and also just in general, social media is a long term play. Like if you're
Yes.
expecting to hop on to social media, start posting stuff and think that everybody's going to see it and that you're going to start getting the register is just going to start going bonkers.
I saw something, a post or a reel the other day. It was something like people are willing to invest their time in their jobs and potentially work at a company for 20, 40 years, but you're now telling me that waiting a couple weeks or months or years for something to work in social media is not worth the investment, but you're worthing to work here for 20 years. So I think people do recognize and companies do recognize that, social media is important. You have to be on it, just like, we were saying this about websites, what feels like only a couple years ago, but determining how it actually impacts the bottom line. Understanding that marketing is an investment no matter what, and that it's not merely just a profit generating function,
Yeah.
that it is crucial for, like you said, the long haul.
And I think that too, social media is going to serve your company very differently than it will serve another company, depending on
Yes.
how far along you are in growing your brand or how long your company's been around, whether or not you've been on social media very long or you're just starting.
Who's actually helping execute it? Are you a one man show,
Right.
or do you have a team behind you? And then, just kind of bring it back to this fourth point here, just looking at like leads, as just like the connection points that you're making on social media as
Right.
your return on investment,
Right.
because those are connections that you wouldn't have made elsewhere.
Awesome. What's number 5? Let's wrap
All
this.
right.
Let's take this baby home.
Number 5, which is definitely my favorite. We were talking about education and entertainment, but now I'm, like, kind of pressing those together to be edutainment.
Edutainment.
This edutainment is something that provides the kind of tip of the hat towards, someone getting something out of what you're doing. We talked about, I mean, TikTok does this. This is what that platform lives off of, is
Right.
just this education, learning something. You've probably seen ads or commercials, I learned it on TikTok. I mean, that is truly the engagement, the entertaining elements, learning something, the accessibility for enjoying content is really what social media is all about. It effectively captures your attention, but also retains viewers by providing this worthwhile value that you're bringing, which in turn can turn into brand interest, awareness, even a sale, or working at the company, whatever your end goal might be. So many ways of doing that. Storytelling, comedy, humor. I think this is where B2B can have a lot more fun.
Yeah, and stand out, right? Because it's kind of crowded in that B2C world, and I think
Yes.
B2B is already starting to go that way. I mean,
Yeah.
even just look on LinkedIn now. Like if we're talking about TikTok, where this edutainment thing's happening, look on LinkedIn and in your mobile app on the featured video section. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm on TikTok, or I feel like
Yeah.
I'm on YouTube or Instagram, and there's even a bigger opportunity there because it's not so crowded. Um, Especially on the B2B side. I do think that this is where companies need to rely or sort of like work with outside agencies, and whether it's a larger
Mhm.
agency or a small
Yeah.
agency, you really do need somebody to guide you through these waters, unless you have a guru in house, which I just don't see that very often.
That's
I
definitely not the case. And
Yeah,
even, I mean, I think people are like, "Well, we have younger employees, they should know how that works." Well, that's
yeah.
definitely not the
Well,
case at all.
and I think they can play a role, right? I think at the end of the
Yeah,
day, like there are going to be in-house resources, people that they're young people and you're thinking about getting on TikTok or whatever it is. I think they can play a role. I think what happens a lot of times that I see when a company or brand tries to get on, we're going to be on TikTok now. We know that we need to be there or whatever. We're going to start making some more youthful content. Is it works from the entertainment standpoint,
yeah,
but it doesn't click with the actual brand or the voice or the message that needs to be communicated from that brand, especially on B2B side. And you're talking about health tech or something like really nuanced. Like there's a
yeah,
lot of nuance that needs to be translated into that edutainment sort of form of content. You really have to have some expertise, or you really have to make sure you're cross collaborating with that young person that doesn't know the brand or the voice very well, even
yep,
though they might understand TikTok really well.
right,
And that expert or that person who really understands how the voice needs to be communicated, or what's actually an accurate thing to say
right.
about health tech in the first place.
It's not easy to do, so I totally agree. You need to tap in to some resources or third parties like us creatives or agencies who kind of live and breathe this. It's our bread and butter. We're the experts on this side, you guys are the experts. Let's collaborate to make something, to find that, really good niche to make us and our content stand out in an edutainment type of way.
Yeah, and this is not an ad for Taylor's company or for Fungi
No,
Media. That's not what this is. But if you
this
do
is
need
not
help,
at
if you do
all.
need help, let us know.
Yes, if
Um,
you do need help or have questions on the word I just came up with, let me
we will
know.
help. Awesome. Well, Taylor, I love it. I feel like this is kind of bigger picture, sort of change your thinking. The 5 tips:
Yeah,
have an emergency plan, change is imminent, be ready for it, check in on your team and your insights. Leads are the new ROI, and edutainment, baby. I love educating people. I love entertaining people. So I'm hoping that we can always continuously push our clients in that direction.
I agree. Yeah, thank you so much. This is great.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Go Fungal.